Eric Muadh, muadh.com. Let's take a look at some of the stocks that you had shortlisted from the IBD 50, and here's the list of stocks. So we're going to go take a look at each of them one by one. And the first thing I'm going to do is just see here, I'm on stock charts, of course, and just for those who might not be aware, I'm sure you are, we're going to click on the, I've already made a list of this, so click on the members link there and then come down to the page here, and we're going to look for the list or the created list, and it is right here. So I'm just going to click on 10 per page. Then the other thing I'm going to do is, let's take a look at here. We have the option. I'm going to click on edit, and what I've done is I've gone all the way to the bottom of the page, and there's an option here, change chart settings. So let me highlight that. So this option here, and I'm going to click on that, and it's going to, you might not be able to see this, but it's going to give me an option here. And so let's do that. So it's going to give me an option here. What I'm going to use to choose here to use is the 34-month monthly chart setting. So I'm going to click on that and click on change. It's going to give us a pop-up here that asks whether we want to change the settings. Of course we do. So there's an option, and of course I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. So let's do that, and there you have it. So that's going to set all the charts on this list on the, in fact, hold on, I need to highlight, so select all, my bad, and then come here, click on this option, settings, change that, and so it's changed it to 34 months, and then come here, we're going to view this on a 10 per page. And so let's do that. So let's take a look at the charts and see what we got. And so the first one is AGRO. Let's take a look at your comments here, and you say on monthly charts RSI moved, so let's bring this a little bit lower. On monthly charts RSI moved above 69.1, is making new highs, but MACD is not making new highs. So let's take a look at that. And I think what we see here is that, yes, we see that the RSIs actually here, from what I can tell, all the indicators are at new highs. So this one, MACD is at new highs, RSI at new highs, so it does meet the minimum requirement. So I would say this one does meet the minimum requirement. What we can do here is, let's take a look at the weekly, and here's a weekly chart. What I don't like about this, and the reason why we're going to have to pass on this one, is because of this volatility on a 2-year weekly chart. I just don't like that volatility. It's all over the place. So this one we're just going to skip, even though it meets the minimum requirement on the monthly. The main reason being that it is not a very stable looking chart. Even you can see here on the monthly, we have what seems like an erratic type of action. So I would probably even suggest that based on the behavior, the next move on this one, more than likely, I'm not sure, but who knows, might be lower. So let's take a look at the next chart on your list. Is AVGO. So let's take a look here at the next one again, AVGO. We go to the comments here on your comments, and it says on monthly charts price is near recent high, RSI may make new all-time high as prices move higher, long-term MACD is making new high, and short-term MACD is making new short-term highs. Take a look at that, and that is correct. This one has been on our watch list over the last month or so, as it comes close to breaking out on the monthly. The buy point is, I believe, let's call it about 147, 148, somewhere in that range. And the reason why it's on the watch list, even though it seems extended from a price performance over the last 3 years, the stock has come from levels as low as $30 and now trading in the 140s. Anyway, so we are looking here, and what we see here is RSI at above 69.1, which is a sign of strength. And also we are looking at the MACDs crossing over above zero. The MACDs are not at new highs. And so here you would own this based on the fact that the RSI is back above 69.1. But from a pure technical standpoint, trying to find the ultimate Muadh breakout, I have to say this one has yet to push the MACDs to new highs. So since we are being very selective, I would also ignore this one, just based on the fact that it is, yes, a momentum player, But what we are looking for is, for example, if we take a look at this one, if we take a look at AVGO from a long-term monthly chart, just want to emphasize that we see this nice move that obviously would have been great to be part of this amazing run here in late 2013, 2014 and early 2015. This was the best moving part of the stock's recent history. We take a look at where all this began, and we can see that at the breakout level we are looking for a 3-year high. Number one, we see here that the RSI jumps above 69.1 in late about September, about this time frame here. This breakout here at about 42, 43, and we can see that the RSI moves above 69.1 at that period, and so we're talking about this period here. And we can also see that the MACD moves to 3-year highs there. At least one of the MACD does move to 3-year highs, and the secondary and the primary MACD comes close to 3-year highs. So we have minimum requirements met with the RSI above 69.1 and the MACDs at new highs, which might explain why the stock went on a nice run during this breakout here. And that again was at about in the lower 40s to mid 40s. Stock has done well since then. So right now what we're looking at here is one that we can ignore purely because the MACDs are not trading at new highs. Take a look at the next candidate here. It is Alibaba, and let's take a look at your comments. And you state, I guess I read the one I read earlier was for Alibaba, excuse me. So anyway, on monthly charts, prices near new highs, RSI may make new highs, MACDs are at new highs. So let's take a look at that. So I guess I was reading the wrong stock, but what we are looking at here is, yes, if you take a look at this IPO, which IPO'd in middle of 2000, I guess late to middle of 2014, IPO was somewhere there, I believe in September, August of 2014. But we are looking here at the RSI on the monthly, just now starting to show and to print. So what we're looking at here is a possibility that with a breakout, if we can get a breakout, RSI might move above 50 and also make an all-time high. We are looking at the MACD that looks okay. So yes, it meets the minimum requirement. We've been watching this one, and so if we take a look, for example, at the weekly, let's take a look at the weekly for BABA. Whoops. Try that again. And what we're looking at here is it does need to break out here above 85 or so to make a move above the recent weekly closing high. So it needs to be above 85 and change, somewhere around there. And if it can trade above that, then that's when we can know that it is also potentially going to be moving its weekly RSI to all-time highs. Keep in mind, for an IPO, we can use the weekly chart if the monthly is not fully developed. So the weekly chart can be our default. So if the RSI jumps to levels to all-time highs, and also if the MACDs on the weekly can stay at all-time highs, and one of the MACDs is at all-time highs, then the stock might have a chance of moving high. So here what we can do is set an alert for a breakout above 85. So this one I would put on my watch list, because should it jump above 85, that would suggest that it is now showing strength and the minimum requirements being met on the weekly. So set an alert on this one, and let's see how things go. The next stock is a CDW. Let's take a look at comments here. So take a look at here is on monthly charts, RSI is above 69.1. If price and MACD make new high, the stock may be in play. All right, let's take a look at that, and we can see that the MACDs are okay. They're not bad. Close to highs on the MACD, and also here not too far from the high. So it's a stock of interest, definitely. We can see that the RSI is trading above 69.1. Now I will probably, okay, what you can do is probably just set an alert here at about 44.50. If it can break out, maybe it can do well. My only feeling here is that since 2013 the stock has moved from $18 to 45 in about, so we are talking about 1 year, 2 year, about 2.5 years. And that's an okay gain, but it's not explosive. We are looking for explosive stocks. So it's been a slow grinding moving stock. Yes, over time it's done well since the IPO here in the lower or the higher teens. But is it an explosive stock? No. And I think for that reason, personally, I would probably skip this one and find something else. That would be my conclusion on that one. Take a look at the next one, CTXS, and let's take a look at your comments here. CTXS, and it says on monthly charts, if price moves above 83, then this stock may be in play. This should be accompanied by a move in RSI above 3-year highs and 61.8. This stock had doubled last time it had moved above 3-year RSI highs. So okay, let's take a look at this. And right off the bat, I don't know whether you can see this. The thing I don't like about this is it is not a consistent mover. You can take a look at the monthly action, just all over the place. And this is very ugly. Without even going into details, this one has to be scratched from the list. It's just not a pretty looking chart. Let's take a look at, for example, AVGO as a contrast. Let's take a look at AVGO, which we just looked at earlier. Take a look at the monthly chart, and this is what you're looking for. Stocks with consistent price action. You want this type of action, as opposed to this type of action, which is all over the place and is very ugly. So this one we are going to have to skip. No need to look at the technicals here because of the stock being erratic. We are going to have to ignore that, even though yes, the technicals were starting to look okay because they are new highs or close to new highs on the monthly RSI, and the MACDs at new highs. The problem is the stock has a tendency to give back gains and just to be all over the place. So we are going to have to skip this one and go on, take a look at the next candidate. The next stock in your list is EDU. Let's take a look at the comments here. And here you're talking about on weekly chart, the RSI is above 69.1 and near 3-year high. The price is close to recent highs. MACD is about 3-year highs. Short-term, long-term MACD is near 3-year highs. On monthly chart, price is above 3-year highs. RSI is approaching 3-year high and above 69.1. MACDs are not making new highs. So let's take a look at the monthly first, which is our default. And on the monthly, yes, we can see here that you're right. MACDs are not at new highs. Might get there, might not. RSI is also close to 3-year highs. But then again, there's just something here that and I'm sure you can see this from the previous stock, is even though the stock can do well over time, this is also another very all over the place stock. And I would just ignore it based on that. It just doesn't look like it has a history of holding on to gains. Let's take a look at the weekly, since you mentioned the weekly. And the weekly here is perfect example of a stock that you want to ignore, because take a look at the weekly price action. Down, up, down, sideways, down, sharp move up, loses, down, up, now up. Clearly the next logical move in this stock is down, just based on the recent history. So really we have to ignore that, even though the technicals show that the MACDs are at new highs. At least one of the MACDs, the short-term one, as you mentioned, is at new highs. And the RSI is above 69.1. The problem here is when we are looking at breakouts, we need to make sure that the monthly chart meets the minimum requirement first, and the monthly chart is not. So we have to default to the monthly. And again, the stock is very volatile. We might have to ignore that one. On to the next one. The next stock that you are shortlisted is EFX. And here's an example of a stock that has done well over the last couple of years, mainly because its RSI has held above 69.1. Now, stock has moved on this 3-year monthly chart from a price range of 50s all the way to 110 since 2014. So over the last 3 years, it has gained just about 100%. I would say that's a slow moving stock, and so we're going to have to ignore it. Even though it's been a nice consistent mover, what we're looking for is explosive moves, and for a stock that gains 100% in 3 years, we're going to have to skip. And before we do that, I just want to take sure I do mention your comments here, so we can just take a look at what you, on monthly chart, price is near new high and RSI is above 69.1. That's correct. And also MACDs are not near highs, but this stock has gained gradual price increase and does not have a compelling story. So there again, you can see why it hasn't moved yet, because it doesn't have a strong thrust. Looks good, to be very honest. MACDs are at new highs. MACDs are at new highs here. And in fact, let me take a look here, and the RSI is above 69.1. I want to take a look at your comments one more time. MACDs are not at new highs. So I've noticed in a couple of these charts that you're not seeing, for some reason, that the MACDs are at new highs. So maybe the settings are different. But here the MACDs are definitely, one of the MACDs is at new highs. So check your settings. Here I'm using MACD setting of 13, 21, and 8 as my default and big time frame MACD. So make sure it's your settings are anything close to this. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you use the default MACD setting, you're still gonna get the same MACD high, and I'll show that in a second. And the other MACD setting is 583 and 583, and all of these MACD settings are based on the Fibonacci series numbers. And so, 0, 0, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and on and on, 55, 89, 89, and on and on. So we can see that my MACD settings are based on this Fibonacci series numbers. And so just make sure that your settings are correct, because I noticed that on some of your analysis that your MACD readings were not giving you the correct analysis. Let's take a look at this stock, EFX. Just give me a second here. I want to demonstrate something here. What we're going to do, we're going to go to the monthly chart, and I'm going to, just for a second here, change the MACD settings to the default MACD settings of 12, 26, 9. I believe that's the normally what is used as the default MACD settings. I'm going to update that. And so the MACD setting should be default on most charts. So most charts will have the default setting of 12, 26, and 9. So let me write that, so just in case somebody cannot read that. So most of the MACD charts are going to be showing this default MACD settings, right? So those are the settings, and you can see here is what I'm using, and you still get a new high. So check your MACD settings. For some reason, they are not consistent with some of the charts that we are looking at. The other stock on your list is JCOM, which has had a decent run over the last couple of years, moving from 35 and now trading in the 80s, so over 3 years. And here you see another problem is, yes, the stock looks okay, but it's moved from 35 to $80 in about 3 years. I would not call that a very encouraging sign. But in terms of the momentum, because the stock is not really exploding. And what we're looking at here is that the MACDs are trading well at new highs, at least on one of the MACD settings, which is at least the minimum requirement. One of the MACDs should be at new highs. Let's take a look here at your comments, and you say on monthly charts, the price has made new high. RSI is above 69.1 and approaching previous all-time high. MACDs are approaching all-time highs too. On weekly, the price is well below recent highs. RSI is below all-time high and 69.1. So here the monthlies look okay. And so I bet what you're talking about is the need to go find the next buy point, because on the monthly chart there's no buy point. The previous buy point was during this breakout above the previous monthly closing high. So that was the most recent buy point on the monthly chart. Take a look here at let's take a look here. It's JCOM. Take a look at the weekly, and I think what you're getting at here, so your buy point can be used at about $81, somewhere around there, the recent weekly closing high. So if somebody was chasing this one, you'd need this to move above $81. And if it was to be a momentum stock, you'd like the RSI also to jump to levels here above 69.1. So if the RSI can move above 69.1, price can stay above recent weekly closing highs, maybe you have a candidate here to hold. But I personally would not be too desperate to own this one, because the stock has really not been taking off, and you can see the way it trades. It's just slow moving, frustrating kind of a mover. I mean, this is just not going anywhere, and then a little bit of a move, not going anywhere. So I would skip this one, because what we are looking for here ultimately is explosive moving stocks. All right, let's take a look at the next idea here, and it is Kroger. And Kroger has had a nice run. It's not a bad moving stock for retailer. $14 3 years ago, $42 this last month of December 2015. We're looking here at a recent breakout on the monthly, so we already missed the breakout, and that breakout also corresponds with the RSI jumping above 69.1, which is a sign of strength. MACDs are not at new highs right now on the monthly, so there we see that the MACDs are not doing what we need that to do. Let's take a look here at your comments, and it says Kroger monthly price had made new highs, RSI above 69.1, but MACDs are not. So this one is correct. So I would say we'd have to ignore this one because the MACDs are not at new highs. Let's take a look at the next one here, and the next one is PSA. And man, this one had a nice recent breakout. There was a breakout initially above this previous monthly closing high. It settled down for about a month or so, broke out again from $200, and over the last 4 months it's gone from 200 over to 250. Nice gaining stock. We can see one of the reasons why it's done well is because its monthly RSI jumped to all-time highs at the beginning of or late September. So this move here brought it up to all-time highs on the monthly RSI, which is why it exploded recently. So there is another reason why you need stocks that are exploding to all-time highs on the monthly RSI. And we also see that the the MACDs also went to all-time highs. So this one met the minimum requirement for sure. And so if somebody was chasing this, you'd have to default. So let's take a look at PSA to the weekly, because the monthly already broke out and the weekly hasn't given us a fresh breakout. The most recent breakout on the weekly chart was here when it settled down for about 4 weeks and then broke out again. So we need this to have been at least 2 weeks of rest, and by rest I mean you make a weekly closing high and then you have 2 weeks below this high, and then you can break out on the 4th week to new highs. So we haven't seen 2 weeks of rest or 2 down weeks since the high. So this move here, this move this week, is a continuation of this breakout. Hope that makes sense. So we don't see a fresh entry on this one, so we're going to have to skip and go on to the next idea, because this one is not a timely opportunity. Let's take a look at the next stock. This one was a recent buy for Mother.com subscribers, and I'll show you why I did highlight this for subscribers. Is because once it moved above 18, or was showing signs of moving above 18 2 months ago, the reason why I liked this stock at the time is because you can see clearly here that the RSI was just about to break out to 3-year highs, and that's why we had an interest in this one. It met the minimum requirement. The buy point was at about $18 on the monthly, and at the time we can see that the MACDs were just about to make a move to 3-year highs here, and they've already moved to 3-year highs, and the secondary MACD was already at new highs was already at new highs and making a move to 3-year highs. So it met the minimum requirement, so the stock already broke out based on the monthly buy point, so I would not be chasing this one. If you missed it, we can always wait for it to settle down before we can go looking for the next buy point. So we have to let that one go and go to the next idea. In fact, let me take a look at your comments on SWHC. Monthly price, RSI, MACDs are all making all-time highs. That's correct. And then we take a look here at VEEV. Now this one is one that when I was looking at this, I was pretty much encouraged by this one. So from the entire list of stocks that we've mentioned here, the ones that could be timely is BABA. BABA. If it can move above $85, a breakout above $85 would move the weekly RSIs and MACD. So on the weekly chart is where we see that breakout to new RSI highs and MACD highs. So this one is the one that I would watch for down the road. Other than Alibaba, the other stock that is timely is VEEV. Now I don't know what the sector is about. The reason why I think it is a stock of interest is because we look here at the RSI about to break out. Okay, MACDs are just now breaking out to all-time highs with the opportunity of moving above zero for the first time ever, and the other MACDs just moving now above this level here, which is all-time highs on the MACD. So it meets the minimum requirement. What you can do here is now figure out where you want to use what you'd like to use as your entry level. And so what I'm doing here is showing you the weekly chart. So we are trying to find the next buy point. We can also try and figure out where the weekly can give us an entry level. And then I start seeing a problem with this stock is, take a look at this action. This is just too volatile, just not what you want to see. So this one, I would start changing my mind about even following this stock. You know, I would just not be too confident holding on to this. But what you can do is, for example, just if you're not sure because if you take a look at the weekly looks very volatile. The monthly chart looks a little bit more stable. And so what we can do is just set an alert maybe at about and this one is a guesstimate because there's no really strong buy point. I would even use this buy point here at about $31. That would be one option. The other option is take a look at the weekly and figure out where you can use a buy point. So maybe you can use the recent weekly closing high, or let's go to the daily. Maybe the daily can give us a buy point. Okay, so what we can do here is we can see that over the last couple of months it's been stalling here at about $29, right? So we can see that this was a daily closing high at about 29. Stock is trading at 28.76. So what we can do is set an alert. Let's say if the stock were ever to break out above $29 and change, so above this range, the highest closing high, intraday high or intraday price range was here at about 29.40, 29.30. So let's just say 29. And the reason why I'm doing that is just to show this is an arbitrary number. If you can figure out what the intraday high there, then you can see that the stock hasn't traded above that going back to about May of this year. So if it can clear that level, maybe we can take a look at the stock again. But so set an alert at the intraday high here. Let's call it about 29, somewhere around there. Anything above that and the stock would be breaking out, and at that particular point, if it breaks out, the monthly chart would be also moving to the MACDs and the RSIs to 3-year highs, and that sometimes can be what changes a stock's trading pattern. So I would watch this one if it can break out above this recent high range. This is a monthly chart, so above this range, if it can break out, maybe we can take a look. Otherwise, that's just a summary of the stocks that you had given me, and we've looked at all of them. So let's just see how the market goes. From all this list, I think the ones that I like but they are not breaking out is VEEV EEV, but the best one is BABA if it can break out above $85. So let me know if you have any questions. Eric Muadid, muadid.com. As always, good luck, peace, and blessings. EACS.